So many of us today find that our time, our focus, and our energy are really scattered and spread thin. And this makes sense because so many people want a piece of our attention. That unless we deliberately try to clear space and make way for a little bit of inner stillness, it leaves us feeling confused, distracted, apathetic, worn out, and like we don't have a clear sense maybe of who we are, what we want from life, or where we're trying to go. And this is actually a really key tool for becoming a successful, happy person. And in fact, motivational speakers are all the time talking about clearing away the excess. Find what it is you really want to focus on and clear everything else away. And the same thing holds true for finding who we are as people. There's an idea today that what we need to do is keep adding things on in order to be happier and more successful, right? Like if only we associate with the right people, if only we do all this extra work, if only we take these extra classes or buy the extra things, then we'll get to the place we want to be at. But in reality, I love the metaphor of a sculptor, right? In order to find a beautiful piece of art, they don't add things on to the block of marble. They chip away at it. They take away everything that is not the masterpiece underneath. And the same thing holds true for us. The key is to clear away the things that are keeping us from reaching our potential. And Hermann Hesse, he was a German-Swiss poet, writer, and painter. He has this quote that I really love. He says, "The true profession of a man is to find his way to himself." And I think that's so striking because it's not about creating the person you want, but about finding the person you are. And this is really, for me, like a very freeing, liberating way to approach life and work, is to see not what am I missing, what is wrong with me that I need to change, but what is hindering me here that I can clear away. So then the question becomes, how do we know? How do we get a sense of what's getting in front of us and keeping us from getting where we want to go, and what's helping us? What do we want to hold on to? And that's where this idea of really listening and developing inner stillness comes in. So what I want to do in this video is break down 6 ways that we can go about developing this stillness. And you can just pick a couple, anything that strikes you that you think you can apply in your life. But it really is a critical key to both finding what maybe we're meant to do, what is it that really gets us going, that we really have a knack for that other people don't, and what will bring us peace and joy at the same time. So this is a tool both for being happy and successful at the same time. The first basic tip is to cultivate literal moments of silence. So many of us don't have silence throughout our days, and that did not used to be the case, right? If you worked out on a farm, half your work would be quiet, except for maybe listening to like the wind in the grass or the cows, right? It used to be very quiet in the world. Now it's very noisy. Something I like to do sometimes is I will just drive in silence. Not all the time, but once in a while if I kind of need the headspace, I've had a lot going on, I need to let my thoughts settle, I just won't turn on any music, I won't listen to a podcast. And some of us may find that that sounds uncomfortable, right? That we don't want to be in silence, and that could be for 2 reasons. Maybe we just aren't used to it because we never do it. The other one could be that when it's silent, our thoughts get to rest a little bit and sit, and sometimes they will prompt us to things that make us uncomfortable, right? Sometimes your mind will go right to dealing with an issue that you've kind of been trying to ignore. That's a sign straight up, like immediately, if we're going back to this idea of the sculpture, that there's something you need to chip off. And I get it. We don't want to chip the things off because it's uncomfortable. Like maybe there's a friendship that's really not good for you. Every time you spend time with this person, you feel like you need to be changing yourself, right? Or adding something on in order to fit in with them. And maybe you need to have a difficult conversation or make a break there and you don't want to. So you don't want to be in silence because your mind will immediately remind you of this task that you need to do. And so you'll try to avoid it. And you can see how it creates a spiral. So having silence can be a little bit uncomfortable. I think, again, a lot of us aren't used to it because it's a very loud world, but it's really helpful. And if you're getting these notifications from yourself, if you're telling yourself that there's something you need to do, I really encourage you to try and look at it. Try and take a good look at what it is that's bothering you, because it's almost certainly something that will be getting in the way of you being happier and more successful in your life. So driving is a good one. Taking a walk is really nice. Take a walk without any headphones, right? Maybe even take a walk by yourself and just be outside and take in your little suburban neighborhood or wherever you live and see what's going on. Even if you live in a loud city, that's a different goal. It won't give you quite literal silence, but if you don't put on any extra stimulus, you just go, just observe the world around you, even that counts to some extent. And this too is like a sign, at least for me, of a really good relationship. If you can be with somebody, friend or otherwise, and you find that the conversation will lapse and you're just in silence and it's not uncomfortable, right? I don't know if you guys have experienced that, but if you're with someone and there's no conversation and it isn't awkward, I'm like, this is a good friend. Like, we're gonna get along because we can be silent together. So moments of silence, whatever that looks like, those can be really helpful. And frankly, we all need them at some point in our lives. The next one is a really common bit of advice, but make room for some still form of prayer or meditation. And the stillness is the key. I think a lot of us will have a habit of putting time aside to be still, but we'll spend all the time thinking through our to-do list or our problems, things that we want in life, or that can be like a kind of prayer too, where you're just listening through like requests or things that you need. And that's okay. There's a time for that kind of headspace, but that is not the goal for what I'm talking about here. The goal is to listen. The goal is to listen, and it's hard. It's kind of hard to do, but it really does make a difference. I had someone gave me the advice back in college to try and take 10 minutes every day to do this kind of very still listening sort of prayer, and it has made such a difference in my life. And we're talking like slow growth, right? I'm not gonna promise you that by the end of the month your life will be changed. No, this is very gradual, very deep kind of change. Now I'm at the point, because I've been doing this for years, and I do it every day because it's really made a difference for me. It's like an anchor. Like when my life is getting crazy, I know that I'm going to give myself these 10 minutes a day to listen and be still and get a sense of where I need to go and what I need to be doing. And it's such a relief. Really, I call it an anchor for a reason. It's made a big difference for me. So I do encourage you, if you can, carve out a chunk of time and practice it. And practice is a key word here. Same thing goes for this idea of cultivating moments of silence. All of this, all of the advice I'm going to give here, if we haven't built a habit of it, is going to be hard. You're almost exercising a new muscle. For myself, when I started doing my 10 minutes of listening, I found that I really needed the 10 minutes block of time in order to get maybe 2 minutes of actual peace and calm, because my brain would not turn off. So it was an exercise of reminding myself over and over and over again to come back, to stop thinking about other things. It's hard. You're training your mind in these new pathways that it's not used to. So if you go and you want to incorporate this into your life, don't be discouraged. It takes time, it takes effort. Give yourself a break. But if you get 2 minutes a day, if you start actually having peace for 2 minutes a day when you used to have 0, it's enough. You're like opening that door a crack. You'll start to hear things. You'll start to understand yourself. You'll start to find that grounded feeling that is so important. Okay, next idea. This one's big, and I know everyone gives this piece of advice, but it really is critical. Spend some time offline. Like disconnect, like no phones, no TV, no smartwatches. Just get away from the screens, get away from all of the noise, the people telling you what to think, how to be, what to buy. I mean, it's a really, really loud digital world. And it's beautiful and useful. Obviously, there's so much value to it. I'm here making a YouTube channel, but we need to disconnect sometimes. We absolutely do. We will never get a sense of who we are or where we need to be going. If all we do is listen to other people constantly, of course, we will be confused. So deliberately every day, set a time if that's helpful for you. You can structure like, these are my 15 minutes if that's all you can do, or my half hour. I like to ditch my phone after dinner. I just leave it somewhere else, and I might check it one time before bed and respond to people really quickly if something came up, but I like to just leave it. The other thing about this, and it freaks me out too about smartwatches, which again, I know, so useful, but your work can follow you everywhere. You've got your emails on your wrist. I don't know, that freaks me out. You need to be able to leave it. Say, no one's gonna ask anything of me or tell me what to do. I'm living my life. I'm being a human. I'm hanging out with the people who are important to me. I'm doing something else with my time. It can be really especially valuable to unplug before bed. And you know, there are all these studies on how it affects sleep. If you can cultivate a time before bed, and actually a little bit of time right in the morning too, give your brain time to just be itself. Let yourself take a break. You don't need to always be talking to people or hearing from them. It's really good. Then the next one, and I have this video, really gets into ways to like be more creative and all kinds of activities we can do that are really good for us and our brains. In a general sense, any kind of recreational activity that you love that's really free from any kind of marketing or people constantly barraging you with news or things you need to do. So if you want to go play touch football with somebody, you want to paint with watercolors, these are good things. And I know it's not necessarily literally silent, but it's still a kind of resting. It's getting away from the noise and the chaos and the demands of our daily lives and giving ourselves time to play a little bit, and that's restful too. And it does help us connect back to who we are and get a little bit more grounded as well. The next one is also a very common piece of advice. We hear this over and over again because it's so valuable, and that is to spend time journaling. If you can reflect every day or even once a week, what went well for you? What are you really grateful for? What was hard? What would you like to improve in the future? This is great for our brain in so many ways, and again, for developing this kind of listening and stillness. And it's also really nice for seeing overall patterns. That's maybe the single thing that journaling has over and over the rest of these, is you can look back on what you wrote last week, last month, last year, see how you've grown and changed, and see how certain things keep coming up for you. What are your patterns of struggle, right? That's a great way to identify back to our like block that we're chiseling away at with our sculptor. It's a great way to identify themes or things that we clearly need to work on that are holding us back, right? If there's a chunk that we need to work off there, we often aren't aware of it until we can look at a long-term pattern, and journaling is really great for that. So if you can carve out, again, maybe just 10 minutes every day, or maybe 10 minutes every week. But if you can add in some journaling, that's a really great one too. Okay, and the last one here is to be able to take a moment without being distracted or entertained. And obviously this goes in with like any of the other ones I mentioned just about, but this one's nice because you can do it almost by accident. It's just the mindset of knowing that we want to take moments throughout the day just to be, just to stop working, stop talking, to not be entertained or scrolling our phones or taking in media, but just to exist. So for a lot of us, if we have a busy workday and we have 5 minutes before our next meeting starts or something, we'll get on our phone and see what people are doing on Instagram. But if you could not, once in a while, not that you can't sometimes scroll your phone in between meetings, but once in a while, don't be productive. Don't see what other people are up to. Just be yourself for a second. See how you're doing, and maybe appreciate the fact that you just finished a project, or notice that it's raining and go outside and smell the rain. You know, these kinds of things. Just give ourselves little moments throughout the day to appreciate existing as ourselves. This is really great too, and it'll build, again, kind of a habit of being more in touch with ourselves than necessarily in touch with what everyone else is telling us to do or who they're telling us to be. So those are my ideas for you to cultivate moments of silence, to spend some time in really still listening prayer or meditation, to deliberately every day take some time disconnected, offline, away from your phone or your devices, to feel free to engage in a recreational, like creative activity that is just for you, that you just enjoy, to spend time journaling or reflecting, and to take moments throughout the day and not fill them up with extra work or extra entertainment, but just to be still and kind of appreciate who you are and where you're at and where you're going with your life. And I hope you found some of these helpful, and that you're able to pick a few that maybe really resonate and you can apply them in your life, and that it helps you find a better sense of who you are, what you want from life, and that it will help you really cultivate a more joyful and fulfilled way of being. Thank you again for watching. Please do subscribe if you found this content helpful, and I will see you next time.